Hello everyone, you're welcome to the Executive Lounge with me and Shira Ado. This is your business thought leadership program that brings you nuggets of insights from the lives and experiences of men and women who have either started their own businesses or managed other businesses. It is a daunting task, and these men and women have scaled those heights and they tell us their stories here so you and I can learn. Today is no exception. We're joined by a chiropractic physician. Recently adjudged the SME Health Business of the Year, CEO of Nova Wellness Center here in Accra, Dr. Asheley Dordor. You're welcome.
Thank you, Asheley.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I must say that it's interesting to see that a very young business as Nova is already making strides. How does it feel to run a business that's already winning awards in, 3 years?
4.
4 years,
yes,
yeah.
4 years. It was a big encouragement for me because it's been tough. As you said, it's a daunting experience, and it's the last thing I expected to happen right now. But that only told me that there are bigger strides ahead that we have to make, and it's possible, it's doable. I mean, if I can make it, then anybody else can make it. So as hard as it is, I think people should think about taking that risk, because for me it was a huge risk that I took to leave my life in the US after school. I had a job and I pretty much decided to drop everything and come back home.
And this was what, 5 years ago?
So this was, yes, about 5 years ago. Wow. Exactly, in 2012. So I had come home for Christmas and I just told my mom, I think I want to come back home.
You sure it wasn't the Christmas food that got you to think,
Probably. I'm not in the kinky that I destroyed at some point. Yeah. Yes. So I just thought, I'm going to come back home. I had been in North America for about 10 years, from undergrad to chiropractic school, and then I was working. So that was December. By April 2012, I was back.
Wow.
And I didn't even know what I was doing. My dad couldn't believe it. Why? Just stay for a while longer. And I said no. I just felt the need to come and serve. At that point, a lot of health problems that we're facing here in Ghana as a country is needless, really. So, and I felt like I needed to come and give my all to help my fellow citizens.
That's
so
a very
that's why I moved
noble gesture.
Thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
Didn't you have people say, are you like going cuckoo?
I did.
You did?
I did. Friends and family, especially in my field. 5 years ago, many people still didn't know what chiropractic was. Even today, most people may have an idea, and that's only in the urban cities. When you go to the rural areas, nobody knows what chiropractic is. So I had a lot of family and friends saying, this is risky, who's gonna come? People don't understand these things. And I said, I'll explain. I'll get there. And especially at that point, I was actually the only Ghanaian born chiropractor in Ghana.
Wow.
So we had the Americans at that time, but at that point, especially female, I was the only one in 2012. So that notion of, chiropractic is only the Americans that do it. You know how our people are. Sometimes we trust other people from other countries more than we trust our own. So that was another limitation that people said, hey, nobody's going to come to you. They'll rather go to the well-established American chiropractors. And I thought, it's a risk I'm willing to take. So we did, and here we are today.
How did you develop the tenacity to say that, in spite of all these hurdles that, apart from your own momentary, disbelief in whether you were going to be able to do this, the fear of the unknown, and people listing all of these, hurdles, you still decided to go ahead. Where did you get that drive from?
Well, the biggest thing is that chiropractic works. And so I knew there was nobody who could explain it to our people for them to understand it, even in our local languages. Because at my clinic, I have my old ladies and old men who come in and they'll come and say, "Mienu blofoe." you know, and I
then you
want
break
to,
it down
and I
in
have
the
to break
local
it
language.
down. I speak Ga, I speak Tree, so I speak Ada. I'm able to, you know, get down to it. And it's not only about the treatment, but it's also about the advice. You know, culturally, we do a lot of things that affect our spine, even how we carry heavy loads on our heads, the way we bend down to sweep. All these things do affect the spine, and our people, we just don't know.
Wow.
So
Even the
these are
way we bend
things,
down and sweep.
yes.
Wow.
Oh, and these are things we've been doing, you know, for how many years now? But if you look at the West, which we tend to copy a lot of things from, nobody uses that short broom. It's a standing
So it's
broom.
a standing broom.
And the reason is that you want to stand upright as much as you can. So some of these things that we have been doing for all these years, we need to slowly change them. And that cultural change, nobody else can do it than somebody who is from the country. So that's one of my motivations each day, that nobody else can explain these things to my people more than I myself can.
The service at the core of your calling.
Right.
You recognize early on that I want to come and serve my people. Let's learn a little more about the younger you.
Sure.
I mean, what was it like? The family growing up? Where did you school? Who were
Okay.
the influences growing up and things like that?
We have a very small family. I have one brother, a younger brother. So grew up with my parents. I went to Achimota Primary School and JSS, and then to Akosumbo International School. Very supportive family. My parents really pushed me to be great. And I was one of the kids who everybody knew was going to be a doctor, because right from beginning I always had that motherly feel to things. So it was very easy for me to go into the sciences. So I did science in Akosumbo International School, and then I did a bachelor's of science for my undergrad. Now, my father was very disappointed when I didn't want to go to medical school.
Wow.
Yes, because he thought, you want to be a doctor but not a medical doctor? And I said, yeah, you know, why should everybody be a medical doctor? So after some convincing, I was able to go to chiropractic school in the US and then start my career.
It's quite interesting that you said your father, you know, at some point was disappointed because you were not going down what we could, for the lack of a better expression, the traditional
Right.
route to become a doctor.
Right.
But so what is the difference between chiropractic and medicine as we know it?
Great question. So medicine uses primarily drugs and surgery to treat, primarily. Whereas chiropractic, we use natural therapies. So chiropractic itself means done by hand. So the primary
Chiro,
mode of, yes, chiro hand, yes. So the primary mode of treatment is using my hands to analyze and realign the spine.
Wow.
That's primarily what we do. But most chiropractors would add things like exercise, things like nutrition, massage, to complement the chiropractic adjustments. We believe that healing comes from within. So it's not a drug or an outside agent that you take in that makes you well. We believe that if you give your body the right environment to thrive in, that is when you get true health and wellness.
That's interesting. I mean, there's quite a lot of interest in health and wellness these days. If you go online, there's stuff jumping at you every day. And if you think about a country like Ghana, that we found this new status of a middle-income country, there are indicators that we were going to suddenly have an improved life expectancy. That means people are going to have to live a lot longer, and they have to be well in that time and things like that. How important is health and wellness for an economy like Ghana?
It's extremely important. I mean, without a healthy population, what are we going to achieve? We're going to end up spending a lot of our resources getting people well, rather than spending our resources on other things like education, security, and so on and so forth. So it is absolutely key. Now, especially in a country like Ghana where our resources are a bit stiff, there's so much,
to say the least.
there's so much that there's only little and has to be spread, across education, agriculture. So I think it is very, very important for corporations to take this health and wellness thing for themselves and ensure that employees are healthy. Because if you think about it, if even 10 of the biggest corporations in Ghana who are hiring, I don't know how many multimedia employees.
Quite a bit.
Yes. So even if it's
a few good hundreds.
Right. Even if it's 1,000 and there's 10 companies that are hiring 1,000 people, and all these 10 companies are ensuring that their employees are well, that will go down to affect the families. And you can see the ripple effect. But we're in a country where we're all dependent on government. We're dependent on our national insurance scheme and things like that to make us well. That's never going to happen. That is never going to happen. So I think corporations, employers should take that responsibility. And, sometimes it seems difficult, but think about this. Everybody could use a little bit more incentive, right? So could corporations say that, hey, for every 6 months that every department is keeping and maintaining a good BMI, that's body mass index, is making sure that blood pressure levels are good, it's making sure that sugar levels are good, you get an incentive.
Wow.
What do you think is going to happen?
Lots of more people are going to be healthier, right?
People are going to be healthier because they're going to get more money in their pockets, and it creates a culture. There are companies who are doing these things, by the way.
Okay.
Yes, and it creates a health culture within the company.
But that also has a knock-on effect on the bottom line.
It does.
Because you have less sick days.
You have less sick days. People are more motivated. You're able to use your resources to do other things to grow the company rather than, paying hospital bills. Because you have to realize that a lot of these companies do also pay for their employees' medical bills. So if you're not paying attention to how to keep the employee healthy, then you're going to be spending all your money on curing. So there's nothing about prevention, as a country or culturally. I don't think we've spent a lot of resources on what we call preventive medicine. Rather, we're talking about curative. So I just wrote an article and I was thinking about it. We put a lot of energy on building hospitals, which are important. But can we go down to make sure that people are maintaining a good blood pressure? How do we ensure that people are having their sugar levels checked frequently? So if these things are under check and control, who is going to need to go visit the hospital? So these are some of the things that I think corporations should look at. And at the end of the day, they'll be saving and they'll be making more profit. So we can't sit and depend on government for everything, including our health. If you're going to wait for the president or the minister of health to bring you health, that's never going to happen.
Because there are other ways of doing it,
Right.
which is more be proactive and prevent things instead of fixing them when you have
Exactly.
problems. Okay, so I've just learned something about what chiropractic is. Now, you said something about giving the body a good and a decent environment. Let's explore the environment, be it where you live or where you work. Where you live, you would have a fair amount of control, but you don't have so much the environment the control over the environment you work in.
Right.
How can the individual be able to thrive in an environment, especially when you know we spend more time at work than we do at home?
Right. So again, it comes down to policies, and it comes down to that corporate culture. And I think people need to speak up more. I think people need to be truthful, because again, we come from a culture where you can't argue with an elderly person or your boss, or somebody who is high up the hierarchy.
As is being called lately, we don't speak truth to power.
We don't, exactly. So I think a lot of people just accept the status quo and just live in it, which is where a lot of the issues are coming from. So what I'm saying is, if you're sitting on a chair at work, that chair could have been there for the past 10 years. It's possible one of the legs is even broken, but you came and met the chair and you just sit in it and make it work, And so over time, you realize that your body you don't even sit straight in that chair. So you get back pain, and that chair is still there. You keep sitting on it because you don't speak up. It's very possible your employer could change that chair, but a lot of people just get comfortable and stay in that zone. So I think as a people, if something is not working for you or something is affecting you within the work environment, we need to speak up. And employers and managers and supervisors should also work with their teams to make sure that some of these health problems are taken care of.
Interesting stuff. We're going to learn more from Dr. Dordor in a moment. But, well, the one thing I know that we've learned in this segment so far is that you need to learn to speak up, and your body has to have the right environment to thrive in. You have primary responsibility for that. We'll be back after this break with more. This is the Executive Lounge. Stay where you are. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge with me, Inshirado. Today I'm joined by the CEO of Nova Wellness Center here in Accra, Dr. Asheley Dordor. And she's been telling us some very interesting stuff. She is a chiropractic physician, and she uses her hands and your body to fix you. Interesting stuff, that we have a responsibility for our bodies, and if we can take that responsibility and work at it, we will have less need to be sick and go to the hospital.
Exactly.
Now, let's just, if you had to relook at our healthcare in Ghana, and you talked earlier about how we tend to want to build hospitals, which in itself is a good idea, but there's no proactive plan to ensure we're doing preventive health care. The chiropractic is not covered by the National Health Insurance. Is it covered elsewhere?
It is. It is covered elsewhere. You mean outside of Ghana?
Yeah.
Yes, in a lot of the Western countries where you have private health insurance, you may have some chiropractic adjustments covered. But chiropractic in itself is great, but it doesn't even work 100% if you don't do the other lifestyle things. So yes, if you cannot do chiropractic because you're not on we are not on national, it's not on national health insurance here in Ghana, you can still exercise. You can still watch your diet. You can still have checkups periodically. Every 6 months, once a year, you need to have checkups. So these things are also essential if you cannot have chiropractic care because it's not covered by national health insurance.
Should it be covered?
I think it should.
Why?
Because in the industrialized world, they're saying that up to 1/3 leave of absence is due to musculoskeletal disease.
Wow.
Musculoskeletal disease is your back pain, headache, neck pain, joint issues. Those are the reasons why a lot of people are not able to come to work. Now, what do we do when we have these aches and pains? We would usually take some painkillers. That only works temporarily. So it doesn't solve the problem.
Deals with the symptoms.
It deals with the symptoms. So another month or two, you may need another leave of absence. Now, chiropractic goes to the root cause of the problem, because a lot of these aches and pains come from spinal misalignment. So we work on the spine to remove any interference and make the body work better. So yes, if 1/3 of us, so if we look at those of us in here, I'm sure if I were to ask, that statistic would work to find out how many people here are having some of those issues. I'm almost 100% sure that statistic would work. And therefore, we need to have, even if it's not the National Health Insurance, we need to have some system that will help deal with these problems well.
You mentioned that there are corporations that are aligned, in a sense, to ensuring that there's wellness at work. It's obvious, commonsensical, you would say it goes a long way to, but explain how these things are being implemented. Just open our eyes to this.
So a lot of the tech companies in the West now, so we talk about Microsoft, we talk about Google, Facebook, they have what we call wellness clinics on site.
Wow.
So it's not any fancy big hospital, no. It's a simple place where you can go and just take a break. So they will have like a very serene place with some flowers, with some flowing water, that like a zen, that you could just go in and relax for a few minutes, exactly, and go back to work. Some of them have massage therapists on site. Some of them have chiropractors on site.
I can't help but imagine. So as you're describing all of these things, I'm trying to figure out, okay, which company in Ghana would try something like this? But
there are companies I know of that have gyms. Okay? I have worked with some of them. And this is the funny part. I have not found any of these companies that have gyms and their employees are actually utilizing them.
Really?
So the gym has been set up, there are machines there, and people don't use them.
Why aren't people using them?
Because of the culture. People, like I said, there's no incentive.
So we haven't been sold the benefit of living an active life?
No, we have not. So even when it is brought to their doorstep, people still do not utilize them. I know of a company who has hired like an aerobics instructor. And I went in and did some economic assessment for them. And how many people actually use this? Oh, maybe 1 or 2.
Wow.
So the culture is not there. And we need to be speaking more about these things. We need to let people understand the risk of not working out, of being sedentary, the risk of not eating well, the risk of living such a high stressed life and not managing it properly. People really need to be aware of it. For instance, I remember hearing Kojo Yank's Kojo Yankson. Okay, right. So Kojo Yankson speaks about how he got diagnosed with diabetes and drinking a lot of soda. You know, people do not know this. You'd be amazed to find that people don't drink water. They just don't. You know, so this is the education that we need to do to let people understand that if you go down this path, this is the outcome. So
you can really work in a high octane environment, be as successful as you want. But there are certain things that if you're not doing, you really will end up paying for lots of pills and potions.
You would. And the other thing that doesn't help us is this notion of, hypertension runs in my family.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it?
Diabetes runs in my family. So it's almost as if we accept it and just wait for it to happen. You know, but
is it because when people say that and you're also assessed by a physician or a medical doctor, I mean, they ask you, so is there a history of this condition in the family? Why is it that people who have members of the family having those conditions tend to be predisposed to having them?
There are diseases that are genetic.
Right.
Certain things can run in the blood. Hypertension and these things can run in the blood. However, all the research is showing that the percentage of people who actually inherit these things genetically is really, really small. Is really small. So the majority of us are actually getting these things because of our lifestyle and not because we got it from mom or dad. Now, this is my scenario I always use. If my mom doesn't cook healthy food, she always cooks with a lot of oil, a lot of fatty foods, high sugar. We always eat late. That is what I learned. Right? So if nothing changes, when I move into my home,
you'll be doing the same thing.
I'll be doing the same thing.
And that's how it runs in the family.
And that's how it runs in the family. So whatever diseases mom got because of her lifestyle, it's very possible that I'll also get the same thing.
Unless
there's
I
a
do
change.
something different.
Exactly. So it's not because I got it from mom, but it is because mom and I have the same lifestyle. So we don't inherit these things as much as we think we do, but it's our lifestyle. So I've heard people come to my clinic and say, oh, I had a headache and my mom gave me some of her blood pressure medicine. And I'm thinking, you have not been diagnosed. And then they go, oh, yes, but, it's in the family. Everybody has it. So we have accepted that notion, which is something that as a country, again, we really need to move away from and rather work on changing those lifestyle habits that bring about these diseases.
The word lifestyle keeps coming up. Let me just give you a snapshot of the average middle income or middle class executive today. Wake up early in the morning, sit in a car, drive through traffic, get to work, sit behind a desk, work, take a little bit of a break, come back, sit behind the desk, sit in the car, drive, go home, sit down, watch TV, and then fall asleep, wake up, repeat the cycle 7 more times. Is that dangerous? And if it is, what should we be doing differently?
It is very, very dangerous. So that's the sedentary life. And I was reading something just about a week ago, and they were saying that, it's even worse for the business executive who even works out maybe 3 times a week. You may do, let's say, 30 minutes cardio, for instance. However, because you just sit at work and you are not active at work, it outdoes that 30-minute cardio
you
that
might
you
as
do.
well have not just done anything.
Because the sedentary or the long hours of sitting in bad posture affect all your body's organs, from your brain all the way down. So we are sitting like that. It's so bad they have a name for it. It's called sitting disease. And within sitting disease, we have what we call text neck, because you're on your phone like that, you're on your computer like that, you're on your tablet like that. And so that continuous flexion of the neck is also bad. So the business executive today is not helping themselves if they are not breaking some of these habits. You need to get up at least every 30 to 45 minutes to take a break from your computer.
Wow. It means that people with, people like me who can't sit still for a while, it's good.
Good for you.
Ah.
Good for you. So even walking around, so much so that they have created workstations that are movable.
Movable workstations.
Movable workstation. So excuse me, there's a lot that we can still do. You know, you can adjust it so you can sit, you can adjust it so you can stand, you can move it as you work. You know, one of my tips that I give my patients is if you sit a lot, every time your phone rings and you have to talk, walk around whilst you have that conversation.
So at least you get some movement.
So
in
you
that
get
time.
some movement, yes. So these are all very, very, very easy tips, things that people can do today to change that habit of being sedentary or sitting for very long at work.
Expose us a little more to the movable workstation scenario. So at work, I have a desk and a chair. And I sit. And sometimes you get to sit for a while, depending on what you're doing. Personally, I think that I just have a condition that makes it difficult for me to sit in one place for too long. So I move about and interrupt other people's work, which they're not very happy with. But I get to move about. Well, for those who don't, are there options like these workstations? I mean, so if my desk is this high and I necessarily need to type, but I also need to... What must people do differently?
So, like I said, you need to move every 30 to 45 minutes. You need to take a break and refocus, regroup, and then you sit down and then you continue. You also want to look at your workstation, especially if you use a laptop instead of a desktop. A desktop has a stand which elevates it. A laptop does not have that. So again, you have to bend down a lot of the times if you're using a laptop. So you simply need to put something underneath that laptop
and elevate it.
So that helps you to sit straight, and then you can keep your eye on the monitor.
I've seen a colleague of mine putting her laptop on a stack of boxes lately, so that might be the reason.
That is exactly why he or
How
she's
important
doing
is
that.
it for businesses to have, and I go back, you just really prompted a memory. You actually brought back a memory. I worked for a blue chip in the UK many years ago, and I remember when I arrived at work for the first time, my first day at work, after orientation and everything was done, it was their job to take me to my desk, made me sit in a chair, checked my did a complete assessment, my eye level and everything, and then gave me a document that says if you're working with visual display units, you need your eyes tested and you need to take breaks and things like that. Are we killing people because we're not doing these things in our businesses?
We are. I recently did an economic assessment, just like what.
Oh, so that's what it's called, huh?
Yes, economic assessment. So I recently did that for a very big company here. And so I went back, I presented the results with pictures and everything, and the managers were shocked. You know, why is this person using this chair? Why is this here? Why don't they have cabinets here? You know, so the truth is a lot of employers don't even know what is happening on the ground.
Wow.
So the people on the ground are getting sick. And this company I'm talking about, they called me in because they realized that their health bill was going sky high because everybody is going to the hospital for the same neck pain, back pain. So they wanted to find out what is happening at work. That is why they had me come do the economic assessment. So once I presented my results, they were stunned. And then they realized that, wow, this is why we've been paying the huge health bills. So if they're going to implement the things that I suggested, they're going to solve those problems. And it will prevent them from paying all those hefty bills. But the question is if they're going to implement.
But you see, in these advanced economies, and I use that advisedly, there are legislations with strict punitive measures to ensure that employers
Do the right
preserve the lives of their employees. We're going to explore why we don't have that, even if we do, and why we're not seeing that when we come back from this next break. And at that, we'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge with me in Shirado and my guest, Dr. Na Asheley Dordor. And she's been telling us about how important it is to ensure, not only at an individual level, that our bodies work for us, that our bodies thrive and keep us going, but more importantly, the impact of a healthy workforce for a business as well as for the economy. When I mentioned that the health and safety executive took me around to my desk, did the economic assessment, I didn't know that's what it was called. I, in my mind, called it a desk assessment. But, in the end, I come back to Ghana and I work and I go around and do we have legislation that makes people do this? Because I'm sure elsewhere, if they could get away with it, they would. But something compels them to do that. Do we have something like that?
I know that the Occupational Health and Safety bill is being worked on as we speak. And once that comes to play, it would deal with all these problems. Because for now, employers, I don't want to say they don't care about their employees, but there's nobody to ensure that the employer is doing his bit to make sure that his employees are safe and are healthy. So once that bill is passed and we can implement and make sure that employers are taking care of their employees, that would help solve a lot of these problems.
How would you recommend that we make the workforce, the citizenry, front row center of healthcare delivery in Ghana?
So I think that government can partner some of these big corporations in Ghana, like multimedia, and use them as a conduit to reach the business executive like yourself. If we're able to do that and ensure that department by department, and these things, it doesn't take too much effort. It takes planning and it takes discipline. Department by department, let's use close supervision to make sure that my department, we keep our numbers good. I mean, numbers don't lie. How hard is it going to be to make sure that every 6 months, or even if it's every month, we have somebody who's checking blood pressure, we have somebody who is checking blood sugar, and making sure that everybody is up to par, And if this department is thriving, is doing well, everybody gets an incentive. So if companies can do things like these, it will trickle down. And I recently saw Seth Kwame Boateng, I think. They've started something with the barbers and the
hairdressers.
And the hairdressers.
They're trialing
I was like,
something.
oh, this is an excellent idea. Things like that is where we should be looking at. Things like this are things we should be focusing on in our communities. We have these Keep Fit clubs, which are great. But unfortunately, after they go and keep fit, you know what they do?
They eat and drink for the rest of the day.
They eat and drink for the rest of the day.
So it's more like a keep fat club.
Exactly. So, but again, this is another place where we could really achieve a lot if everybody who is coming...
Every week, people are getting their numbers checked.
Every week, people are getting their numbers. Because the fact that they are coming to go on this 5-kilometer walk, whatever it is, means that they have that wellness in mind. So we have those people there already. Now let's go a step further to check them. Because these same people who are keeping fit and drinking are the same people who are dropping. So let's move a step further and make sure that inside they're healthy. They're doing their checks. They're minimizing stress. How do we even manage stress?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
How do we do that?
I mean, we sit through traffic.
We just keep going.
Yeah. How do we do it?
We just keep going. We need to find somewhere in between the day to do a kumbaya.
Okay.
We do.
But so, my office is in Kokomlemle. It's a very busy space. How do I make time? Or say I'm able to make some 20 minutes during the day. What are some of the things I ought to do to be able to decompress during the day and recharge?
Great. You need to turn all your phones off. You need to slam the laptop or computer, turn it off. You need to lock your door and just empty your mind.
Or nap at my desk?
If you can.
Really?
They're saying
What
that,
are
you know, in, I think it's France, okay?
The siesta.
The siesta.
Yeah. And in France and Spain. And next door, Togo.
Okay.
I don't know about Ivory Coast,
Okay.
but I know about Togo.
So the Francophone culture has siesta. Why? Even in our boarding schools, why do we have siesta, right?
Yes.
Why? And so after school, you go and you have to sleep for an hour. You get up, you go for dinner, you go
Then you go to prep.
to prep. Exactly. It's not just because. It's not, you know.
So there's a need to
There
give the
is
body
a
a
need.
break at some point during the day.
Because your body is just like your car. It's a machine, right? And nobody would drive from Accra to Bolgatanga without stopping. You're going to stop. You're going to buy petrol. You're going to check the levels, check your tires, make sure everything is fine before you continue. So why do we think that our bodies do not need a break?
You wrote an article recently that I read, and you said that you could almost bet that majority of people in my profession and every other high-octane environment probably care more about their cars than their bodies.
Absolutely.
How do we change that?
That's by, like I said, putting your phones off. And
Hey,
if you
can
have
I
to
turn
take
my
a nap,
phone off?
well, let's try it.
Okay.
This is something that I do myself. I mean, I'm busy at the clinic, seeing patients. I have 2 little kids, you know, but when I get home at night, before I go out to see what's happening, the first thing, I just go to my room, everything off, light off, and just empty my brain. Sometimes 5-10 minutes and I'm out. Then I can now focus on the kids, and that also helps me to leave work at work, which is something that we also don't know how to do. You know, you go to work for 8 hours, and then when you come home,
You continue working.
you continue working. You bring work home with you.
And we wonder why
But-
there's no happiness at home, huh?
Exactly, and then the stress continues. So for me, when I get home, I do that, and when I come out, work is out of my mind at that
Wow.
point in time. Then I can focus my attention on family at that point. So these things, it takes intention, it takes discipline, it takes commitment. But like I said, it's doable. They are not difficult things.
How can the state, you said the state and corporations need to do this, but I'd like you to harp on that one more time.
Okay.
So how can the state and businesses ensure that the knowledge, the awareness of the importance of health and wellness and what we ought to do is so widespread that it becomes second nature?
So I'll keep using multimedia because, first of all, I'm a big fan, as you know. And because I think you guys can create change. So your office is in Kokomlemle. Do you have any idea what's happening around you, your neighbors? You know, can, I don't know if there's a polyclinic or
There are clinics
there-
not far from where we are.
So can you partner with a hospital or a clinic close by, and every so often they come in and they do a medical screening for your street? That's one way to look at it. So if we're going to have 10 different multimedias or 10 different companies who are going to partner with clinics, hospitals, healthcare providers, myself, whoever, and ensure that not only them, but the community benefits. Because it's possible Kojo Mensah next door is 40 and has never checked his blood pressure.
He may have some crazy number that he doesn't know.
He has no idea.
These things creep up on you as well.
These things creep up. But if Kojo Mensah says, oh, and it's free, you just have to go and get it checked, he's probably going to check it. And if he knows that, every 2-3 months this is going to happen, he will regularly check. And if there's a problem, then he will follow up, And I think this is one way that we can create that change we're talking about. It's not just about, the big things. I don't think this is too difficult. And I think these are some of the simple things that, even as part of corporate social responsibility, I know that some companies do it, they provide medical screening, they do these health walks. But the thing is, what happens after?
So we take all that data and then
that's it. You just do it. You say, oh, you've done corporate social responsibility, and that's the end of it. But we need to continue and take it a step further to make sure that our communities are healthy.
We've tapped into your knowledge for some time now. Let's get to learn a little more about you. I mean, you've been running your own business for the last 4 years. You just recently won an award, the SME in the health sector. It's not all rosy. What are some of the challenges, and how do you get around them?
Challenges, wow. So I have 2 girls, 2 daughters, and for me, the biggest thing has been, starting a family and being an entrepreneur. It's been the toughest thing ever, especially in my field where am I going to find another chiropractor to fill in for me? So that has been a problem. And also, the support system. We have very, very little to no support as SMEs. And so everything is just tough. You just have to tough it out and take it one day at a time. So challenges for me has been being able to start a family or raise a family and still be an entrepreneur. It's been difficult to fill that gap when I'm not available. So that has been huge. Human resource, people to work with. Again, because my field is so new, we literally have to go and find the people to come in. We don't have the luxury of sitting down and people just walking in.
We'll throw the applications at you.
No, so we literally have to go and find people to come in to receive the treatment. And so you need very motivated, passionate, very proactive people to do that. And sometimes getting those people around here can be a bit difficult. So these are some of the challenges, but by God's grace, we've been able to work with what we have. And here we
in the last 4 years, can you recount your probably most defining moment where you'd had a situation that was your make or break moment,
right,
that turned around things for you?
That was actually this year. So I was about 8 months pregnant, and my associate put in her resignation.
Wow.
Which was fine. So I found somebody else to fill in for me and flew the person in from the US and all that. And then 2 weeks after that, she also left. So at this point, I have hundreds of patients who expect to receive their treatment and
no one to give it.
Nobody to give them that treatment.
How did you get around it?
At that point, I knew I was done. They're going to go see somebody else and
never come back.
And never come back to me, So it was tough. At that point, I almost wanted to give up and say, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Let me find something else to do because this is becoming too difficult.
Where did you find the strength to push past it?
Honestly, my family. My husband said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it."
Did he roll up his sleeves and join you in the?
I'm sure if he could, he would. But he said, "Hey, don't worry about it. You know, it's a sacrifice that you have to make, and you know, there's a baby who's gonna be coming out of you soon. So just focus on that. We'll get to the clinic when we get to it. You know." So we did have a lapse in there for a while where we didn't have a doctor, but thankfully we did find somebody.
How
who
did
was
you
able to come in.
communicate this period and that outage to your your clients?
So I must say I have some very, very understanding clients. Yes, they were disappointed because some of them have been coming to me for the 4 years I've been open. And so when you come to we don't even call them patients, we call them members because it's a very family oriented because I don't like to think of people as sick. I like to think of people as having a little bit of a challenge, which we're helping them through. So they were very understanding, and we assured them that we were doing our best to get somebody for them so that they could continue their treatment. So we may have lost a few, but it was very, 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 very minute. And once I came back, it's as if nothing ever happened.
Wow.
It's as if nothing ever happened. We've gotten right into it. And the clinic actually has grown the most since I've been back. And then we won the award, and so it's been great. It was almost like a blessing, really, in disguise. Because since I got back from my maternity leave, everything has just been wonderful. Yes.
Now you talked about how your family is supportive. It's nice to have a good family and all, but do you struggle to, how do you manage the pressure of work and raising a young family?
That's another difficult one, and it's impossible without having that support. So there are times when, you know, I have programs on the weekend, sometimes Saturday and Sunday. You know, I'm going out looking for people to educate and things like that. But my husband is extra supportive, you know, and so if he has to stay with the kids, he will do that. My mom is also around, my in-law, so it's a very communal relationship that we have. And there are times when my husband is also not around and I have to take care of the kids, and we're able to bounce off each other. But it would have been impossible for me to do this if I didn't have that support system.
Wow, that's great. Very happy to know that. All too soon, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but I wouldn't let you go till I find this out. What do you do to relax?
Great. I enjoy traveling. So I like taking road trips. So when we can, we do that quite a bit. Something else that I've started doing, which it may not make me relax, but it just gives me joy, is giving back. So we've been volunteering services with elderly homes.
Okay.
So
where has that taken you?
So we've been working with Aya Community Center at Elembele in the Western region, and the joy from seeing these elderly people get relief, and we give them free chiropractic care, and we show them how to exercise, and that has been something that I always look forward to. I get to travel, and then
and then you get to go and help people
yeah,
too.
so then I get to help people, and then we recently adopted an orphanage in Maijo called Nyamidria, and we went there and made a donation, and we're going to be providing some free chiropractic care to the children there as well. So in my spare time, I travel, we do some pro bono work. I love spending time with the two little girls. I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month old. And between myself, my husband, and the girls, we have a lot of fun times together.
I can imagine. So thank you so much for joining us on the Executive
Thanks for
Lounge.
having me.
And this is the ritual. We have to now distill the lessons I personally have learned from our engagement today. And it's been a fantastic and very revelatory conversation. Now, number one is that have a plan, and go at it. Now, right from her youth, decided she wanted to do medicine. She wanted to become a doctor. She wanted to fix people. And she's doing exactly that. So, as they say, dream and dream big, but more importantly, work towards them. The second thing is that you should have the right people around you who will support you, who will even sometimes question why you're doing something contrary to what you said you would do. So now his dad at some point said, why are you going to become a chiropractic physician and not a medical doctor as you said? But I'm sure soon enough he realized that she was still going to be working on fixing people. So, but it's about having the right people around you. Family is great. She talked about how her husband supports. It's because she has the right people around. And the other thing is that always look for opportunities where you can do the things you love doing and serve humankind. She said her reason for packing and leaving a good job in the States and coming home was because she wanted to serve the people of this country. And that's why she goes out to places like the Western region to go and help elderly people. Be true to yourself, that you decide that you want to serve people. There's a lot of joy in there. But there also has been some benefits in there for her as well and for her business. The fourth thing I'm walking away with today is be curious. And it's from the desire to travel, to see new places. The interesting thing about travel and curiosity is that you get to see new things, you experience new cultures, your worldview is expanded, and if you were to say the vocabulary of your experiences is enriched. So it's important that you remain curious. And the final thing is do whatever you do with a lot of happiness. Whenever she talked about her work and she talked about, going out to work at the orphanage or work at the Eldon people's home, she says that with a big spark in her eyes. And that's because she enjoys doing what she does. I think today I'll throw in a bonus. Speak up. That's the other thing. Always challenge the status quo. Because until you speak up, you might just be suffering in silence. And the people who you think don't care are only oblivious to your suffering. So, this has been another edition of the Executive Lounge. And we sure have learned great things. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Asheley Dordor. And we'll see you very soon.
Thanks, Shira.
And to you, we'll see you. Catch you next week.